Hello, and welcome to OnStage at the BACP. As always, thank you so much for choosing to invite us into your home, your office, or wherever you are. Today we start our Summer Series 2021, where we share stories about the early days of the BACP, told to you by some of the people who were actually there. Over the summer, they're also going to share stories and favorite memories about some of the shows that they were in and just exactly what Broken Arrow Community Playhouse means to them. Steve Cowan helped me with some of these interviews, so from time to time you may hear his voice in the background as well. Today's special guest is Chester Beebe, who's been here from the beginning. He has a lot to tell you about how the BACP got its start. So without further ado, please welcome Chester Beebe as we jump into the middle or somewhere with his interview with Steve Cowan.
Way back in, I think it was March of 1980, there was a guy named John Weber. He owned a moped shop way in North Broken Arrow, up there near where the old co-op used to be. He owned a moped shop, and one day I got a call from Janet Lee, who said our old teacher Bob Plum was starting a theater group. Now, we had started a really small amateur theater group a couple of years before that, but it sort of fell apart when school started. So I said, yeah, I'm interested. Oh, let's go see what's going on. So the first board meeting was, I think, March of 1980 or the last, like November of 79. And so I went to this board meeting. There was about 6 of us there, and Bob Plum laid out the idea of the Playhouse. And everybody was very excited. We didn't have a building yet, but he says that's not a big deal because he'll find one. So we started creating the different board areas like place selection committee and who would be the house manager, who would be, chairman of the board and president and all that stuff. And of course, Bob Plum was the first president. So we hung around, we talked, we met at another time. Second meeting, Bob had found a building. It was the old Broken Arrow Ledger building that was, I think, 801 South Main. No, that's this building. It was right there at Main in Dallas. So it's where the Arkansas Valley Bank's parking lot is. Used to be the old Ledger building. Before that, it was a car lot. We moved into it for $1 a year because the city wanted somebody to occupy it so that it would have occupancy. So we got it for $1 a year. It was empty. It was a mess. We spent that summer without air conditioning, digging the trenches for the restrooms, putting up walls, getting seats, installing seats, and then I think it was March of that year, whatever year that was, I think it was 80, we performed Harvey. I think it was March. I just started that. April 7th. That's close.
Yeah, that's very good. 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Plus, yeah.
I can barely remember how to get home. But yeah, it was Harvey, and I was still painting flats the night before opening, so that was kind of exciting for me. And back then we did flats the old-fashioned way. We actually nailed the muslin on the frames and did the sizing with the white wash and had to let them dry, and then we painted them. Old school theater stuff. A lot of our lighting equipment was like 100 years old. I ran all the cables. That year I started out at 220 pounds, the heaviest I've ever been, well, back then, 220 pounds, and it was temperatures pretty much like you find in Oklahoma, like 95 to 100 degrees. And like I said, the inside of the building didn't have air conditioning. So I sweated a lot. I'm a sweater. And I lost a lot of weight that time. I went from, in 5 months, I went from 220 to 145. And sometimes I wish I could have that horrible summer back, just so I could get back to 145. I'd probably look like a skeleton, but I at least would feel good. So one of the things that's not published anywhere is that Rooster Day that year, we actually were a very small contingency in a small parade. My mother, who couldn't act to save her life, dressed in my tux coat, went out and talked to people to come in and see what was the very first Rooster Day Follies put on by the Broken Arrow Community Playhouse. People had never heard of us. We were brand new. We were barely open. We still hadn't quite painted the walls. The restrooms had just been finished plumbing like the week before, so at least people could do what they needed to. I think we sold tea, and that is about it. But people could come in, get a taste of song and dance, and then leave, because it wasn't very long. It was like 15 minutes. It was a skit. But at least it got our name out there, and people started to hear about the Broken Arrow Community Playhouse. That was before Harvey. Harvey, as you said, came in April. April came, we did Harvey, and I don't remember how many people came to see it, but I remember that the folks I performed with were fun. It was a family. It was one of those things where for a couple hours every night you stepped out of your skin and stepped into the skin of somebody else. I played an ambulance driver, not a very big part, but it was a fun part. I played the ambulance driver because there weren't a whole lot of people who auditioned for the show, but the ones who did filled up all the roles, and they did a fine job. Like I say, got our name out there. Now, I misremember because it was 40 years ago, but I remember we went and had a discussion about what show we would do next, or maybe it was the summer show we were talking about. And all I could think of in my mind was that we need to get kids, because you get kids, you get parents, you get grandparents, you get people sitting in the seats, you get people involved in the theater, you get the theater's name better out there. So I pushed for Oliver. I got a little bit of pushback because it's a big play, it's a musical, and we didn't know if we could do it. But I was pretty darn sure we were going to be able to do it.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was so good to hear all those stories that Chester had to tell. And he'll be back later in the summer to tell us more about Harvey, and also some of the other shows that he was in here at the BACP over the years. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you again so much for choosing to join us here, and we hope you'll come back for more of our Summer Series 2021 on stage at the BACP.